that up a bit. But today we've got a artificial intelligence generated background. And what I asked for here was give me a good, clean background with lots of light in a wiring closet. And this is what it rendered. Now, for those of you that understand wiring closets and you look really closely, you're going to see wires here that are the size of garden hoses. So AI is still learning, and it's going to get better, I'm sure. I'm Pete Gruber. We have with us today Audrey Taggart, who has been with us before, and Janie.
Hello. Good morning.
And this is going to be a impromptu, freewheeling type. We've got some information to share, but we're looking for participation from the audience. So if you have questions, even if you're employees here watching this, give us some questions and engage us. Oh, look at here comes the background. Yeah.
Awesome.
And you can see by Audrey's head, that cabling is really cool. It's massive.
It's almost like they made just all the cabling bigger than what it should be in that area, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily need to be that big, but
You know, there's a design
cool.
idea. Could we pump more data if the cables were that big?
Probably.
Right.
More bandwidth, maybe. Certainly more current.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I thought we could break the ice with is how does our company go to market in the communications, the data cabling field? And I thought that might be interesting for the audience to kind of get some background, the different channels that we sell to. We actually operate within 4 channels, and the first one is the end users. These are people that have data centers, you know, lots of computers and wiring closets, and yeah. The type of support that we provide there, guys, what would you say?
Well, the customer support that we provide the customers, the enhance further what you mean.
Well, usually projects. It would be a projects related, you know, the installers, for example, are going to have multiple jobs
Everyday
in progress.
needs.
Right.
Correct.
And they're buying constantly.
Correct.
Whereas the end users, the business could be spotty because they're not
Right.
upgrading all the time. They're not doing construction, adding new facilities.
Right. Then it'd be the adds, moves, and changes that we're looking for
Yes.
when they expand,
Mm-hmm.
or they change facilities and things like that.
Sure.
Right.
And, you know, in those large companies, like American Express, for example, my wife works there, they're constantly rearranging offices and making changes, which requires more product, wall plates, patch cables, changes in the wiring closet to activate a new zone in that building, you know, and then, of course, the product that goes in to connect those, which is bulk cable going to that new location.
Yeah.
Sure.
A lot of our end users, too, they like to keep, you know, in their IT room, just some stock of some extra patch cables, fiber cables, you know, wall plates, thing like that, in case they have some new employees come in or they're making a move or adding a new desk. So a lot of the times they'll keep some sort of, you know what I mean, extra cables and products.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, yeah, the end users are a large part of our business. We supply them, and if they have infrastructure, data centers, you know, that has us written all over it.
Absolutely.
That actually happened during COVID. We had an upsurge because of customers, the end users needing more product because they were going out at different sites and things like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, the thing that I think about COVID is there was a lot of telecommuting that started to take place.
Right.
I'll bet they needed that for that as well, to create some infrastructure in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly.
Hey, Janie, can you put your mic in front of you when you're facing Pete? Just put it a little more to your, there you go, up to that other
There
side.
we go. Okay.
Yeah, for those of you curious, we're trying to stay within 1.5 to 2 inches of these microphones so that you can hear us well out there.
Yeah.
So that's one channel, is
Right.
the end user channel. Then the next one is contractors and installers. What's unique about those guys?
Well, they're purchasing every day.
They are.
They're having everyday projects and unique projects that are coming up. So
Yeah.
you could probably enhance.
Well, with our installers, I think that a lot of the times they, you know, it's awesome because they have a different job every day. They're working for a different company, so their needs are going to be different for each project. A lot of the times, you know, they're the ones who are buying the bulk cable and the connectors and installing in the field. Every once in a while, though, we also get the opportunities with the installers to build the custom patch cables for them if, you know, for time or whatever reasons that they need. But yeah, they have different jobs because they install for these end users. Instead of an end user coming straight to us and purchasing these products, they're now hiring the installer to come in and, either build new for them or upgrade for them or whatever it is that they need, the needs that they have.
They come to us for those unique, hard to find products.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And the installers too, it's much more steady business than the end users, which is typically project related.
Absolutely.
Whereas
Right.
the installers, they're in the bid and spec world. They have to go out and find new pockets of business and bid on that continuously in order to keep the machinery fed, which is their delivery system, which is all of the installers that they employ.
Absolutely.
That's where our relationships are keys with our customers
Right.
and ensuring that we're talking to them every day and we're available for them every day around the clock whenever those needs come up, because they could be doing a late night job, doing something late at night, et cetera. So
Sure.
Right.
And something else that's important for installers, because we had a division here that was also doing installation, so we understand that market very well. In the bid and spec world, it's all about price oftentimes, unless you can value add. But working with a tier one producer like us, a direct manufacturer, gives an installer a certain edge in that it makes them more price competitive to land more of these jobs.
Absolutely.
right.
So it's a big benefit being able to buy, direct from the manufacturer, I think. And that's what all of our customers think as well. That's why they continue to keep coming back and, purchasing our products.
That's what makes us who we are.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have these issues like a custom product. Well,
Yes.
if you're working direct with Tier 1, I just did a video, by the way. For those of you interested, go to our YouTube channel, the Gruber Communications channel. And one of the most recent videos, I'm holding up a fiber cable with 144 connectors on it, right?
Right.
Well, this was a cable that's going to be pulled through conduit. And it's much easier when you're working directly with the people that are making the product, rather than having go-betweens where you have to redigest and reinterpret the scope of work.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think I remember the video that you're talking about. The other end must have been they were going to pull through the conduit that was with the connectors, and they do them every 2 inches to stagger them in order to get them to fit through the conduit. That's quite a lot of connectors to put on one fiber
It is.
cable. 144 strands of fiber, and each one having their own connectors. Yeah.
It's
And
interesting to learn about the applications,
It is,
the
yes.
use of those.
It is.
Yeah.
And so, it's really cool when you have a customer who does 144 strands and they want different connectors on the end. Like the one that you have the video, they're all LC connectors, but you have some customers and they're like, well, I want 44 of them to be LCs, some of them to be SCs, or whatever their needs are for that particular project and how many fibers that they're connecting.
Right.
And then, for this type of custom product, it's not the type of thing where it's a commodity product. You can go offshore and you can easily get something like this made because you've got a long lead time, not just the manufacturing process, but then customs and shipping and, ocean transport, unless you fly it here. But there's some definite advantage to, working with a manufacturer like us on these types of products.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think right now our fiber room is running for a basic custom, assembly. If we get an order today, we could probably ship it in a day or two, depending on, just because that's how quick our production team is, and when we work with our customer, we get the specs and we get everything approved, it immediately goes into production and we start working on it. So there is not any of
That's
those
what it's
lead
about
talmes.
when we reach out to our customers, is
Absolutely.
talking about those lead times that we can provide them versus having to go offshore
Right.
like you were talking about
Yes.
in that long time.
Yep.
And then since we're also building to inventory, we can rearrange priorities at a moment's notice to accommodate
Absolutely.
a customer's higher priority need.
Yeah. Yep, that's the great thing, for a lot of our customers when they're in a bind. I know that a lot of mine, when they're in a bind, they call me. They already know that we're going to be able to help them out. They're like, Audrey, I'm going to need something from you.
And again, that goes back to the relationships we build from the beginning with our
Yes.
customers, of knowing who they are, what their needs are, and what environments they're working within. So that way we can assist them in the way that they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then we have another channel. This is the distribution channel. The function of a distributor is to take product and put it on the shelf. And they're fairly agnostic about their brand preferences. They will put on the shelf what the customers prefer.
Right.
So so that's another big part of our business, is that we supply to the distribution, to the distributors. And there it's going to be a wide variety of products. They have to keep product in stock, so when that end user or that installer shows up, they have the product available for them to take off the shelf.
Yeah, and with the distributors, a lot of the things that they're stocking aren't going to be our custom fiber and our assemblies that we've been speaking about. We have a metal shop that we have here too, and those are our stock products that most of the distributors that we work, the items that they do stock would be our metal networking equipment.
Right.
Shelving, patch panels, brackets, rack adapters, things of that nature.
So again, from the beginning, then it's understanding our customers and what their needs are, and working with those distributors to know what their customers are asking for.
Exactly. Yep.
The other cool part as a manufacturer is we listen to our customers,
Right.
and they help us design product that is more efficient and serves our customers better.
Yes.
The majority of innovation that has come out of our product expansion and our product offering is ideas from customers.
Yeah.
The most recent example, and it's not selling well yet, but it was a 2U wire or a cable management panel, 5-ring, I believe.
Right.
And one of our customers said, wouldn't it be nice to be able to introduce cables or exit cables out the back as well into the back of the system?
Right.
So we cut windows in between all of the rings. So now
Right.
you can go both directions.
Yep.
It's those ways that we continue to evolve and keep current in taking care of our customers.
And then the next
Yeah.
thing you know is there are other customers say, that's a great idea. I'd like that too.
Exactly.
And it
Exactly.
builds from there.
Yeah, and it's up to us to let them know that we've got that availability and the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the fourth category I have is private label customers. Now, here's where the customer's imagination really takes over.
Right.
And we'll build anything that they can conceive or that they can come up with.
Yeah, we do have that ability, and people, when we tell them that sometimes on the phone, they're like, and they give us a shot. And I think that we surprise them a lot more times than not, because we just have that capability, we're a small company and we just have the capability to get it done and make it happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And small run, too. There's an interesting story about the building that we're in now. When we first purchased this, we had a tenant that was actually in the aerospace business, but he was small. And the big guys, of course, were Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, and they had contractors that were feeding them their product. His gift was that he was willing to take the nuisance business, the small run business,
Right.
and he was swimming in business because the big guys didn't want to bother with building 5,000 of something.
Right.
They needed these huge orders in order to justify their machinery being involved. Well, that's another advantage we have. What was it in the last podcast? Somebody was saying we got a design. It was the mercury shelf. On a
Right.
napkin, remember?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a great capability to have as a small business. We have customers sometimes call in, and if they need, a custom patch cable, even for us sometimes, if you reach out to one of the bigger manufacturers and you need, 10 or 15 cables, they're like, oh, it's a minimum order. You have to buy 10,000 feet of the cable before we can even build it. Well, again, we have that unique availability that if we already have the cable in stock, we can build it with only one piece if you need it, with no minimum order quantity. And as long as our vendors don't have that on us, we don't usually, we are able to make 1 or 2 cables if that's what the customer at the time. But yes, I think that's
And
big.
assisting with the design. Not everybody has a full-fledged, design engineers on staff. And if it comes to us, the design comes to us on a napkin, we'll help develop a scope of work. And if it requires, professional CAD drawings for the final customer who's going to be receiving this, we can assist with that as well. So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of value add here, based on the type of work we've been doing.
Makes
There
it
is.
limitless, for sure.
All right. So those are the 4 main channels that we operate within. The private label also is any company that wants their brand to promote their brand. We have a number of those types of customers where you'd be amazed at how much of our product is out there. I usually tell customers, but it's being sold under different brand names.
Right.
We
right.
are the core of that product.
Yeah.
Right. That's valuable to us being able to do that, for sure.
Let's see what else we've got here. Any questions coming in so far? Oh, yes, we do. You guys want to read that question?
We've got Frank Leon up there saying good morning to us all. Good morning, Frankie.
Good morning.
Morning, Frank. Yes, thanks for joining us. And so the other thing that I thought would be good to talk about is, what is the goal of this podcast? This is the
Right.
third one that we're doing now. And what really
Sure.
taught us that these podcasts are a great way to create visibility about our capabilities and our companies is to on a weekly basis, create podcasts like this with a specific intent in mind. And I'll just share some of that with you. These are our thoughts as to where we want these podcasts to go. Well, the fundamental reason is to educate and to share processes. We were talking just before the podcast, when you get on Facebook and they show you how to make Oreo cookies, you're suddenly going, uh-oh, I'm hooked. I've always been curious, how did they get that white center, right?
How this is made.
Yeah. So that's something that we will also begin to build out on these YouTube channel sites, these tutorials. And why do they have value? Well, we're going to show people, for example, in this particular podcast or this channel, how to do fusion splicing, for example. That's a pretty advanced skill. It requires a piece of equipment that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And a company that's willing to share their expertise, I think, is going to be visited quite a bit.
Yes.
Well, there's so much to what we do besides just the manufacturing. It's who we are as a company as well, and it's how we operate and working with our employees. So we have the manufacturing portion of it that we can broadcast and share with our customers and show them. But there's also the inner workings and the way we relate and work with our employees as well. That's a big part of what makes us who we are.
Absolutely.
And
I agree
Janie is
with
an
that.
expert on that because she does a lot of the recruiting. She does a lot of the training after people, after they land here. And do you have any success stories you want to tell us about?
Oh, absolutely. We have many success stories. This is one right here. Exactly. She's one of the many success stories. Audrey, how long have you been with us now?
10 years.
10 years? Okay.
Coming on close to 10 years, I
years.
think. Yeah.
Right,
Probably about
right.
9 on, I did leave once to go work for a customer at one time, but I came running back.
And when
Please
they
take me
leave-
back.
They come back.
When they leave, we always say, watch what happens to that greener
The
grass.
Exactly,
It's not
exactly.
always greener. Great company. I went, awesome people, local, distributor, family owned. I can't say anything bad about them. Great people. It just wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't enough learning every day. It was the same mundane tasks every day. Here, it's something different every day. My customers always want something different. And for me, it's really important to keep my mind, not bored.
And it's about those relationships you build with your customers.
Absolutely, it
They
is.
come to you because they want to work with Audrey.
Absolutely.
You know.
And
Yep.
people want to
Yes.
grow. They want to expand. They want to improve.
Yes.
Right.
And for me as a manager, I've been here 40 years now. That is the most rewarding thing, is watching people come in and improve every
Absolutely.
category of their life, because they are now in a career and they're building. And the
Right.
financial rewards
Yes.
come as
Yep.
time goes on.
Gruber has been that for me, absolutely.
Yes.
Lucky to
Yeah.
be here.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely where I see the value in what we do and the efforts that I put forth in working with those individuals and building their careers, and the employees and the staff that we have here, and watching their growth is amazing. And I enjoy it. It's fun
Yeah.
to see them chime in and learn new things and
Right.
their success stories. and-
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, I've been involved in recruiting and hiring as well.
Yes.
And for me, what is fun also is oftentimes people can't see their latent abilities.
Right.
But those of us that have done this for a long period of time,
Yes.
you can't just simply
sure.
tell them and say, you are very gifted in this particular category because they haven't
Right.
experienced it yet.
Right.
But you want to so bad.
Right. You're like, just get it.
Right.
And we know if they'll just stick with it,
Yeah.
they're going to be very
Right.
successful.
Right.
Right.
Not everything works out. Not everyone works out. And sometimes they go to the greener grass thinking that that's,
Right.
But that's always fun for me, is when you see talent and you see that it's a diamond in the rough. It's not been polished yet, and it's
Right.
there,
Right.
but it's there for the with the right commitment, they
Yeah.
can make something of themselves.
Well, one of the
Absolutely.
things that we've done here at Gruber is we've created the employee development program that we have in place now. And that's amazing for our employees to watch them grow and develop within. It's an actual program that takes them through working with the customers and developing the different relationships based on the customer types and the types of customers that we're working with. And it's both on the job training and classroom training, but we actually put a lot of time and effort in their growth and their development.
You know, oftentimes they'll come with from different cultures with preconceived notions, and you know, we have call centers here, and part of the function is to find customers that use our type of product, and then try to get an audience with them and educate them on what we are and what we do.
Right.
Right.
What I find interesting is when they come from these other companies, oftentimes they have some bad habits. And it's
Often.
and, you know, I'm very, very familiar with it because as CEO, I get at least a half a dozen sales calls a day, and that's after screening at the front desk.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But they come through, and, you know, the typical pitch is, do you have a few minutes? And I'm immediately thinking,
Like,
you know,
not really.
sounds like a sales call to me,
Right.
Yeah.
Or the pseudo-friendliness, like they've known me all along. And they'll
Right.
even tell the receptionist oftentimes, oh, yeah, Pete's expecting my call.
Right,
We
right.
spoke last week.
Right.
And when I get those calls, they don't realize the receptionist just told me everything they said. So when they get on the line and say, hi, I'm with XYZ Investment Company in Texas, and we've got an opportunity we want you to invest in and give us your money, and, you know, and we'll invest it for you. But
yeah.
wait a minute. You just lied to my receptionist by saying that
Right.
you spoke to me last week.
Right.
And now you're asking me to entrust my personal finances to you? Does this really work for you? Right.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with me doing a lot of the recruiting, and I have a lot of staffing agencies calling doing the same thing, and then they act like they are looking for a job. It's been the latest route that they
Oh,
go.
wow.
Yeah,
How funny.
yeah. They call up and they're like, "Are you still hiring? Are you still accepting resumes?"
Well, if you are, we have a service that will help you
Right,
with that.
and then that's when they chime in. Exactly.
That's
But
funny.
the point here being is we have a professional way of taking our product to market, and it does
Right.
not include misrepresenting ourselves on the way in.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, any other success stories that you want to share with us?
Well, there are multiple ones. One in particular, one I can think of, he's been with the company for 6 years now as an account manager. And he first started out just doing prospecting, learning who we are, what we do, and very hesitant to move to develop. But again, it's one of those instances where we saw this gift and we saw this talent behind him, and we're like,
Right.
you can do this. You can move yourself and grow into that account management role. And sure enough, he took the leap, and now he's successful, career bound, taking care of his family, supporting himself and his family through his efforts, and developed those long-standing, long-term relationships with his customers.
Such a good feeling.
Oh, it's so fun to watch.
It's such a good feeling, you know, to get past that point and know that
Yeah.
you're in a career and you're, you know what I mean? It's such a
Right.
good feeling. It really
Yeah.
is.
And
It's
you know,
fun
you
to
get
see them mature.
tremendous amount of validation from our customers, because
Right.
our customers, they have problems that need to be solved. They have product and they're not sure what type. And here we are coming along and helping them solve those problems. And, you know, generally, I tell our people all the time, don't worry about the commission. Don't worry about the sale. Help that customer, and the rest will take
Exactly.
care of itself.
Exactly.
Yes.
The second you're concerned about the money and the commission and this and that and the other, you know, it never really works out. You know, when you're concerned about making sure your customer's okay, answering their questions in a timely manner, and making
Right.
sure that you're making that part of their job that they're doing that much easier, they're going to come to you every time because they know they can rely on you and trust you, and you're always going to, you know, make the right decisions for them and their projects.
So getting back for a moment then to our podcast, this wasn't intended to be a recruiting podcast, by the way.
Yeah, right.
But we're excited about what we do. So what is the purpose of these podcasts? All right, so it's to educate and to share production processes, to show people what we do, what the internals are like, how the product is put together, how
Right.
it's made. Now, the history and the evolution of the data cabling world, I've only been involved with it since the last century, like the 70s.
Only.
Well, I didn't go back to Henry Ford's thing. I mean, I could have gone back way further, but I wasn't around then either. So the history and the evolution, how cabling has evolved from copper pushing electrons. Well, somewhere along the way in the last century, we started to hear about fiber. And of course, fiber was originally thought it was going to solve everything. It's got much greater bandwidth. You don't have security issues because there's no magnetic field. And it's much lighter, smaller, and it's one of the most plentiful elements on this planet. Copper is somewhat
Right.
limited compared to glass.
Right.
But you know what started this whole thing? And it was actually in the 1800s. Some guy in Europe found that when you pass light into water, and you have it streaming out of a bucket, that the light follows the curvature of the bucket or of that stream of water.
Wow.
Before then, they thought that light would not bend.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then Corning got involved. Remember Corning in Pennsylvania, New York?
Yeah, some of the very first videos that I've seen, they're old school videos of when they're first starting to test the light and just this, a foot, 2 feet. Those videos are really interesting to watch about how they were figuring out how light bent and moved.
And then the same people that used to make your cookware at Corning,
Right.
they got into the fiber business. They got some really talented scientists involved, and they began to make fiber strands and realized that this could be used to push data, which in the last century was, I think, the 90s. In the 90s, we actually built a large fiber facility on Central Avenue, which we since moved into our main building, Building A. But at that point in time, the vision was that copper was going away and that fiber was going to replace everything. And that didn't happen. Fiber is definitely a very strong part of the data,
It is.
transmission process. But copper, they kept breathing new life into it.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons
They
that we got involved. Yeah, go
They
ahead.
still are,
Yeah.
they still are with the copper. I think that they're just coming out with a Cat 8 recently. It's, new stuff still.
Cool stuff. So we went from copper only to fiber and copper, and then eventually wireless, Wi-Fi. And somebody asked in the last session, actually, well, are there any limitations to Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi, of course, is transmitting data over the airwaves.
Right.
Well, there are, because there's a finite frequency spectrum. And the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, tightly controls the various bands that are available. The CB band, for example, 27 megahertz, is that's part of that. And then you've got the cell phones, which are, in the hundreds of, mega. But anyway, so you have Wi-Fi, and you can push data, wirelessly. But you have a finite amount available. So that's not the panacea and the end-all, be-all either.
Right.
So our goal is to continue to educate, provide some tutorials on, the various transmission methods and the production methods. Because we don't build a Wi-Fi product, but we definitely build fiber and copper.
Right.
And then provide tutorials. Now, this is where I think this is where we're going to be very gifted with these types of podcasts and with our YouTube channel. The vision is to create a number of tutorials that show people how to do a variety of things in the data cabling world. For example, fusion splicing.
Right.
That's a very sophisticated process that requires equipment that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And any installer, who is planning on getting into that. And what fusion splicing does, by the way, if you get a break in a fiber, this allows you to splice it back together without connectorizing it.
Exactly.
And that's handy with long-distance fiber runs. It actually melts the glass together.
That's what I was wondering. I was going to ask for more details.
Yeah. So we're going to have tutorials that show how to use this equipment, what the advantages are of, using it and doing it. Then also optimizing cabling and wiring closets, like that wiring closet that you see behind us here. It's really actually pretty messy and it's not very well done.
Right. It needs some cable management in there.
It needs cable management, yes. If you ever look at some of these large co-location operations where they have a basement where all the plumbing takes place, not just access floor, mind you, where
Right.
you have 24 inches for your electricity and for your chilled water plumbing. They actually have basements in these co-locations, entire rooms, with 10-foot ceiling height, where you have different colors of piping. And cold water is typically blue. Chilled water may be red. That type of thing, because it has
Okay.
temperature at times. So color coding, that's something else that we'll do tutorials on. And then also optimizing the wiring in these wiring closets using. Oh, I have a product behind me here. Pull that up here.
New half you, huh?
This is
There you go.
actually the traditional one because it is not the 1U. I'll let you guys hold it up.
Yeah. Let me move my coffee cup.
Doesn't get
So
mixed in.
using product like this and
Those are
ladder
awesome.
racks, you can actually control the massive amounts of cabling that are going into a data center wiring closet. Very organized. It makes troubleshooting very easy. And if you color coordinate, then you know exactly which ones are security,
Right.
which ones are voice,
Right.
telco, which ones are data, which ones are fiber, it goes on and on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll have a lot of tutorial videos regarding that. And then how to terminate a variety of connectors. We did a few of the, if you go to our YouTube channel, actually, under the com, you'll see that there are some videos where people are connectorizing, but we'll do that in greater detail.
Okay.
We'll show you how to untwist twisted pair cabling so that you can put a load bar on it and then put an RJ45 connector in and have it have a minimal amount of near-end crosstalk. Some of the design features of doing proper cabling and proper termination.
Yeah, I think a good one maybe too is our capabilities of how we do custom labeling with logos and installer information or your customer information. We can do just about any type of a logo for our customers, and a lot of times that's really important for them. Not only if they're not able to do the color coding, for the different types of cables, but for the different ports and a myriad of other things that we can label each cable for custom.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And put their logo on it. Do you know how many logos we have in our system alone?
That's where I was just going to go with this. It'd be great to
Right.
have an idea for those that are watching to the volume that we do what we do. To what extent do we do what we do?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So how many?
Well, when I was
logos?
asked this question in the last podcast, I went out and I looked at the files,
Okay.
all of the customer files that have given us their logos for, custom labeling
Mhm.
and or private labeling, 5,740 or something
Right.
like that. And that's just what
Right.
we have here. Our machine
Right.
shop says, oh, I've got another 1,000 or 2,000 of those
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay. That gives
So-
an idea. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'd love to. I'm a stat person. I love stats. I love hearing about stats and knowing stats and the like,
right?
the volume and how often and how much and the level of what we're doing, what we do.
I think as sales account managers, for our customers, we try to push custom labeling on all of our cables. Not only does that do something for us, our customers knowing that the availability is there. We can serialize cables so they can know exactly which cable is where. If they have an issue or there's it's just endless. What we can do for our customers. So and I think that any of us really try to push that for all of our customers with our USA made patch cables because it's a great benefit to be able to have those labels.
And it's not that expensive either.
It's not.
There are a number of reasons that you want to, and you've touched on a few of them actually.
Mm-hmm.
One of them might be that you want your ports on those cables.
Exactly.
Where those or what building it's going to and
Right.
what section in that building.
Yep.
You can put all of that on those custom labels on those cables.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one is for the distributors, for example, private labeling. Well, branding is very important. Wouldn't it be nice if we put your logo, your phone number, your contact information on that label?
Exactly.
So 3 years down the road, when that customer needs a bunch more of those cables, they simply grab the phone number off that cable and they know exactly where they got the first
Right.
batch and where they can get
Yeah,
some
it wouldn't
more,
even
just
be
like
a question, of where they need to
Right.
go or, how they need to find it. They already know.
Yeah.
And that's what's unique to doing what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big part of our business, custom,
Yes.
custom labeling. So we will be providing tutorials on a lot of these types of things about how we do it, what it looks like, what the end result is, and then finally provide a forum for question and answers. You know, there are, we have live chat already.
Right.
And for those of you unfamiliar with that, if you have a technical question, you can contact us 24/7, because even when we're not here, it will ask you for your contact information
Right.
and someone will get back to you.
Yep.
And if it is mission critical, like with Gruber Power Services, we've got 24/7 coverage for that.
Very true.
Any more questions? It looks like Frank's the only one so far.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about the history of data cabling. And
Okay.
there I have some expertise because I've been around such a long time.
Just a little while.
Well, in the 50s and 60s, a phenomena occurred, which was the computers began to get introduced in business. Prior to that, literally, there were people with typewriters, you know, the manual click-clack typewriters.
Right.
And, you know, business was done with general ledgers and, you know, even handwriting was still being used.
yeah.
Right.
And then suddenly computers came along, and they were originally called mainframes because no one could afford a computer. They were gigantic machines that took up entire rooms. They were
Yeah.
very low powered, but compared to absolutely nothing to what those computers were able to do, it was like the future, a bright
Right.
future.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so in the 50s to the 70s, we had mainframe computers, which used a communication protocol called RS-232, which was a 25 conductor cable, which they only used 4 connections on. And here we have an image we can throw up, Jesse.
Yeah.
It is called the DB25 pinouts.
All that cable to use just a few, right?
And when I worked for Digital in the 70s, I remember going out to computer rooms. Yeah, here you go. The ones highlighted, you've got pins 2, 3, 7, and 20. Those were the primary RS-232 signal cables. And there was transmit and receive, there was ground, and then there was data terminal ready.
Right.
That told the computer, okay, I can send something. Or I'm busy now, I'm printing, so no.
Okay.
You know, my binary bit is the wrong, it's either a 0 or 1, right?
Yeah.
So when in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of wiring was 25 conductor cables. Now, to get a 25 conductor cable, it's thicker than this.
It is.
Okay.
It's about 3/8 of an inch thick, because you've got all of that wiring that you have to embed in there, and only using 4 of those.
Wow.
But that was the conventional wisdom at the time. Let me see if I have another picture for you. If we bring up picture DB25 cabling, Jesse. And here you can see a digital VAX 11780. This is a mainframe computer. And in that
wow.
one cabinet there, you can see the DB25 connectors going to
Yeah.
25 conductor cables. Well, you couldn't really do any patching with this large
Wow.
a quantity of thick cables. So they
Right.
were usually point-to-point runs. From that mainframe, that cable ran all the way to that dumb terminal.
Wow.
And when I say dumb terminal, it means it wasn't a computer. It was a
Right.
CRT screen with a keyboard, and it needed, all of its intelligence was in the mainframe.
Okay.
So that was how data cabling was done up through until the 70s. And while I was still working for Digital, there was a company called Black Bear that actually developed a modular adapter, recognizing that you didn't need all 25 pins. And one other major game-changing theory, you could use telephone cables for data.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
because an RJ45 has 8 connections, not
Okay.
just 4, which is what you needed for RS-232. And now, instead of using DB25 connectors, you could use RJ45 connectors. All right, got another image here for you, Jesse.
Fraction of
Okay.
the size.
Let's bring up the 12-port wall plate. So by the time, before I left Digital in the early 80s, there were already people that were beginning to realize that telco could be used for data. This is a 12-port wall plate that we originally used as a patch panel. And we would mount these on a steel plate or aluminum plate and then mount that in a 19-inch rack. And suddenly we had 48 or 36 connections that we could patch.
Okay.
And then-
this looks familiar.
Well, we still sell these wall plates, just not for the same things.
No, not here, from back in the day.
Oh.
One more picture here, Jesse, and this is the silver satin cabinet. And what you'll see here, and I know we've talked about this in an earlier podcast, but we get new people now, and it's not. I mean, we can reiterate a bit
can.
here.
Right,
This is
absolutely.
educational. So this is at the at a local school
Okay.
that used our product, and if you can see that cabinet on the wall there, actually now has patch panels, which we began building in the early '80s. Instead of using wall plates, and then using a telephone cable called a silver satin cable. Now, before we bring up a silver satin cable for you, the reason these cabinets are wood and now are steel or aluminum is because the guy that we hired was a woodworker and a cabinet maker prior to
funny.
his tenure with us.
Okay.
And he said, I can make you guys cabinets that will do everything you want by putting steel 19-inch racks inside the wooden cabinet. So a
Okay.
number of our early computer room
That's
design
awesome.
and installations were wooden cabinets. And they were beautiful. They were
I did not
teak
know
or-
that.
Yeah, they were laminate, They were
Right.
like your high-end kitchen cabinets.
That's
So
interesting.
anyway, let's bring up one more cable here, Jesse. This is called a silver satin cable. And what we're using now, instead of DB25 cables, which are much larger and thicker, with a DB25 connector on each end and much more expensive, we were able to use telephone cables to do data cabling.
Yeah.
Now, back then, you could get by with a silver satin. This is an 8-conductor without any twisted pair because the speeds were so slow. And you didn't have
Exactly.
any near-end crosstalk you needed to worry about. As they then went to category 4, which we also pioneered, by the way, you need a twisted pair. And the reason for that is when you have two wires side by side like this, and you have a signal running through one of the wires, there is a magnetic field, and it's round like this, that is being generated in that wire. And if you have a wire too close to it, then whatever field is generated in the live wire is crossing over into the other wire. And of course, if you have different functions like transmit and receive, that's going to confuse the signals. Am I transmitting or am I
Right.
receiving?
Gonna
Right.
start causing
Right.
issues.
Right.
Yes.
So that's where twisted pair cabling came along. And
Okay.
again, it was using telephone wire. Instead of straight conductor, they were now using twisted pairs inside the cables. And they called it initially, probably tell a whole story. It was initially called
Okay.
level 4. There was
Okay.
level 1, 2, 3, 4. But then one of the big distributors, Annixter, decided we're going to copyright level so that we can generate revenue off of this.
Okay.
I swear to God.
Wow.
And the whole world said, time out. We're going to call it something else to foil your plan.
Oh,
And that's how
okay.
it went to category
Yep.
Okay.
eventually.
Interesting.
So now category 4 comes along. And so we got rid of the RS-232 DB25 cables, which, again, were bulky, expensive. That silver satin cable you saw earlier was probably under $1.
Yes.
The DB25 cable with DB25 connectors on either end was more like $7 to $10 a piece. So it was a major cost savings. So by the late 70s, companies like us began using telco silver satin cables and RJ45 jacks and wall plates, all brought over from the telco world.
Right.
Now, there were 3 different, or actually 5 different types of cabling trades back then. And they were all distinctly unique and different. They didn't cross over into each other's domains. The first one was the electrical contractors. They ran
Right.
power.
Right.
But when you were bidding on a project, you saw all the other trades there, but each one was focused on their own trade, their own discipline. Then you had voice and telco contractors that ran phone lines,
Right.
right? Like the silver satin stuff. Then you had data cabling contractors They're the ones that were originally doing the DB25 connections and then migrated over. And once the telco guys realized, wait a minute, they're using our product to run data. Maybe we should be in this business as well.
Right.
We'll talk about that in a moment. They
Okay.
started to blend and merge. Then you had your security and your alarm contractors who did, the fire, sensors, the smoke detectors, the pads on the doors for, gaining
Emergency
access.
exits.
Right,
Sure.
emergency exits. That was another discipline. And finally, you had your cable TV guys, the CCTV cablers.
Right.
And for some reason, it never occurred to any of them. We see each other at every inspect. We're running this stuff right next to each other through these buildings.
Right.
Why don't we do it all
At the same time.
at the same time? Right. It took years to figure that out, right?
Right.
But anyway, it was actually the voice and telco and the data cabling groups that first decided that they needed to merge and they shouldn't ignore the other, parts of that bid and spec work in
Right.
that building.
But that took cross training,
Yes.
getting them,
Right.
right.
Yeah, I remember in the early years, they used to come to us because we were data cablers.
Right.
And, well, how do you do this? And, they were cautious because they realized that we were going to be hesitant to train a competitor, especially the electricians, right?
Right.
But so what ended up happening is you would see all of these trades at a job site, and we were often working side by side with them, and none of us had figured out by that point that we should be doing it all. We started doing electrical fairly early on, so we weren't ignoring that because, pulling wire is pulling wire. It's just the size of the wire and what's running on it later on.
Where we end up.
Yep. So anyway, that was the first real merging took place, and it was cabling contractors' voice, and then from there it moved to VoIP, voice over IP, and then people began to realize, wait a minute, these are network signals that are running voice.
Yep.
Why are we
Wow.
all in these separate disciplines? Well, today what you have is even the electricians, they have a high voltage division and a low voltage cabling division, and that's where those terms came from.
Yes.
Okay.
To them, anything under 120 volts
Right.
was low voltage cabling.
Every once in a while, you'll get somebody
Yeah.
who grew up or who learned, high voltage cabling, and they'll call up to Gruber and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I just need to know." And they cut through some Cat 6 wires, thinking they can just splice them back together like they would, regular wires. And you're like, "No, let me teach you something real fast."
Yep.
Not the same.
So that's kind of a mini history lesson here. How today this cabling is done, and typically now all of the electrical contractors do low voltage cabling, and they no longer draw a line between
Right.
cable TV and security and data
Exactly.
cabling or fiber.
We learn a lot of that through the calls that we're talking to our different customers.
Yes.
And as we qualify our customers, we're learning the different fields and things like that they work within.
Absolutely.
And there is still some of that separation, through those fields. And you learn that through the calls that we're making and talking to our customers.
Absolutely.
Yep. So that's kind of the brief history lesson. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the the history of Ethernet, and although it started in 1973.
Okay.
Yeah. And Robert Bob Metcalf creates the first Ethernet cable for Xerox.
Okay. Copy people.
Yeah, the PARC building.
Yeah.
And, Digital Equipment, the company I worked for,
Right.
was also heavily involved with that. They eventually collaborated with Xerox and
Cool.
developed the thick Ethernet, they called it. You talk about a thick cable.
Thick.
I mean, yeah.
Thick
It was like
Ethernet.
5 times thicker than that. It was
Right.
just under a garden hose, just about there.
I went on a job a job walk one time, and it was in downtown Phoenix. I won't name drop anybody, but they had the raised floors in their facility, an old building, been there for many, many years, downtown Phoenix. And they were doing some rebuilds, and they lifted up those raised floors, and I promise you there was wires in there from the 1970s.
Really?
I mean, it was just wild to me that they hadn't ripped them all out, and cleaned them up. I was just flabbergasted at the amount of cables and by that time now, they weren't even using the raised floors anymore. Everything was pulled, a different way, and they were hooking up with other things, but there was massive amount of old cabling underneath their floors.
Sure. The advantages to access floor or to raised floor is that you can hide so much of your cabling.
Right.
Like the studio that we're in here, if you could see what I'm seeing, there are cables everywhere. They're on the floor, they're hanging off
They
the ceiling.
are.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I said. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it's not just low voltage cabling that you can put under an access floor. All of your power runs can be done there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
now you can basically, as you have equipment on top of the access floor and you move it around, you just simply redirect some of your, power cables by using what they call blue flex or seal tight cables, which are flexible.
Yeah.
So you have them coming off of a main distribution panel underneath the floor, and then you can route that wherever you want to move your equipment to.
Exactly. It's awesome.
But the other advantage, by the way, and hold that thought because we need more. Right? With the migration from data using telephone cabling now, there was another distinct advantage in that oftentimes you had existing buildings that already had voice wiring in it that now you could repurpose for data.
Okay.
And that saved money at times as well.
Right.
So you've got this wealth of knowledge, and it goes back. How do you keep up on your knowledge, and what has kept you current through the years?
There you go.
Well, these days, for the newer knowledge, I have to
Right.
rely on my granddaughters. Like how to use, I'm serious, how to use my cell phone. I'll show you something.
Okay.
So the other day, I bought a tube amplifier because that's the world I come from. When I worked in a
Right.
radio shop through high school, everything was tubes, a little bit of transistor, but mostly tubes. And
Right.
by the way, for those of you unfamiliar, when you had a tube radio and you turned that thing on, it wasn't that it was dead and broken. You needed to wait 15 to 20 seconds for the tubes to
warm
warm
up.
up before
Right.
your TV came on or your
I
sound
do
came on,
remember
right?
I remember those.
Or you're dating yourself
I
too now, right?
know.
So how do you keep up on the new technology? Well, I decided to get an old school tube amp with a solid state output, so it's a hybrid. And the reason you do that is solid state devices can't pass through the harmonics well. It's all digital, whereas tubes give you an analog sound that most of the audio purists enjoy. So what they'll sometimes do is get a tube preamp front end combined with a high power solid state output amplifier to get that harmonic sound.
Okay.
So I bought this thing, and it's a beautiful little tube amplifier, and I had it sitting over at GMC, and I couldn't know it was at my house, actually. That's why my granddaughter was there. And I was trying to connect audio sources to it, and it's got, in what I call Bluetooth, it's Blu-ray, Bluetooth. See, I get confused. I'm from a different generation, right? We used to have
Right.
discs, right? So my granddaughter says, oh, but you don't need to plug something into that, like a DVD player or something. You just use
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth, right?
Yeah.
I said, well, how do I get this Bluetooth? She says, well, it's right here on your cell phone.
Sure enough. Sure enough.
So she
That's
showed me
awesome.
how to go on my cell phone, go to
connect it.
YouTube, find a playlist, pair it with this amp. So my phone is now
Right.
paired with this amp because it's a, it's a new amp
Right.
with old technology. And now I can play audio through that amplifier with my
Absolutely.
cell phone. Well, just to
Your
show you how
granddaughter.
ignorant I am now. And you're talking
Right.
to a guy that used to repair mainframes in buildings that had entire rooms
Right.
dedicated to computers. And nowadays I have to have my granddaughter show me how to do this technology.
Well, that's how fast it's, evolving.
is,
It's every
yeah.
year it's
Right.
something new. I mean, I thought I was great with computers at 18, 19, 20 years old. I was a whiz. Now I'm like, what? What's that?
But I do have to admit, I'm leapfrogging. I am
Okay.
into artificial intelligence.
Right.
We do an AI podcast every Wednesday, by the way, for those of you interested, where we talk about the new things evolving in the world of artificial intelligence.
So interesting right now.
Fascinating.
It is.
Every day on the news,
Yeah.
you hear updates about it.
Yep.
And the application and how we use it in business.
Yeah.
Right.
I use it constantly for script writing, doing videos, for example. And
Yeah.
I'm always humbled, embarrassed that it does a better job than I do. I consider myself a script writer. But the most recent, by the way, for those of you that are interested, if you go to the Gruber Motor Company YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, there is a video that we just posted out there last week, Friday, where we believe that we have found that artificial intelligence has sentience, or fundamentally is aware of itself. It has consciousness.
Huh.
And we give some examples
Wow.
using
that?
a chat GPT type program called Bard, where the responses indicate that AI is actually intelligent and that that is conscious and aware of itself. In other words, it thinks.
So interesting.
So does it pick up its own personality?
You know, it will freely identify the fact that it does those things differently than humans. It
Right.
doesn't get into a definition what the differences are yet. But what you'll see in the terminology when we ask it certain questions, well, I think this. Well, do machines think? You know,
Right.
that's the first question.
Yeah.
Well, comparatively, like and I'm very novice when it comes to this subject, but when it comes from one AI system to another AI system and comparing responses to each other, it'd be interesting to see.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
In the world of humans, there's you, me, and them, and a whole bunch of other
Right.
people. And just because one guy in France learned how to do a particular thing doesn't mean that the rest of us know anything about that.
Right.
Right.
In the world of AI, there's only one.
Okay.
Right.
And when one entity, AI, learns
Okay.
something,
That's
all of them
awesome.
learned it at the same time. And that's
So
what makes
it's
it so
all
powerful.
in one.
Exactly.
Wow.
We'll see, there we go.
Right. It's going to be interesting to watch it evolve over the next few years, to say
Yes.
the least.
And it will continue to evolve. Jesse, you have any thoughts here? He wants us to wrap.
Okay.
Jesse, by the way, is my co-host on a lot of these AI podcasts, and
Right.
there's some great ideas that get bounced around. But anyway, for those of you interested, check out that video. We call it something like AI has reached sentience,
Okay.
consciousness. It can think for
Interesting.
itself, like Descartes says, "I think, therefore I am."
Okay.
And you know, the other thing that I want to interject at this point is
Yes.
that the prevailing view on artificial intelligence, like anything new that we don't understand, it's dangerous. It's going to kill us.
Right.
It is, you know, it needs to be avoided, and it's the doomsayer scenario. And Hollywood loves that, and they contribute
Right.
to that because
Absolutely.
that's why we go
Movies.
to the theater and buy
Right.
tickets, is because we want to see the world destroyed
Yes.
by AI.
Right.
All right. My view on that is the exact opposite. AI is much brighter than we are. Look at what we've done for thousands of years to this planet and to the rest of humanity, and we're
Right.
still
Right.
doing it. We're still killing each other. All right.
Yes.
Every day.
If you look at highly intelligent people, extraordinarily intelligent people, name one that has been violent.
Right.
Right.
You know, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, Nikola Tesla. No. As we become more intelligent, the violence scale begins to diminish and eventually gets eliminated because it's illogical
I
to
agree
kill
with
other
that.
human
What
species.
areas
I
of your
agree
brain
with
you
that.
use and things
Exactly.
like that. Right.
It's kind of like Dr. Spock said, you know, when Captain asked him something, he says, they were talking about the whales and the extinction. And he says, Captain, it's highly illogical to kill a species to extinction.
Right.
Well, anyway, that's what I subscribe to. I don't
Okay.
think
Nice.
higher intelligence has our human weaknesses.
I think honestly that there is some issue. You know what I mean? I know that the government's getting into the, you know, regulating that and stuff now. But with this way that social media is and the way that AI can fake things and news and how uneducated some people are, I think that it can be that way. I think that it could be a bad thing. You know what I mean? In the social media world, because they can fake so much stuff with AI.
Well, let's not forget that the government is run by people.
Right.
The same
But
people that
still-
have been keeping us, you know, at this level for thousands of years.
Right.
And they're going to want to weaponize
True.
AI.
Yes.
You know, and we make better weapons.
Right. Yeah.
The only improvement there may be that AI will help us distinguish between innocent people that are getting killed and the people that have signed up
Right.
to fight something.
Right.
That, you know,
Would AI evolve to a point where it actually refutes?
Do we have another hour?
I wasn't planning on doing this. I want you to know, but I'm going to go the next step here.
Sorry, couldn't help with that.
My personal preference is mankind cannot run themselves or this planet. What we badly need is some parents to step in. We need.
Right.
We're the ones that need boundaries and
Right.
guardrails, not AI.
Right.
And once we have that, AI can take over and it can
Right.
straighten this mess out. The
That's
first
what I'm
thing I
going to do.
suggest is
Interesting.
we need to neutralize all weapons of mass destructions. They're completely
Right.
worthless. All it is a gigantic club standing over someone
we
that
gotta
makes
go
them.
with that.
Oh, you got me going. We should probably quit there because I could go on for another hour at least.
Exactly.
Well, we want to thank you all for
Yes,
joining us.
thank
We're
you.
right at
Thank
1
you.
hour at this point.
Yeah.
Yes, we've had wonderful guests. We
That
will
was awesome.
continue to do this. And next week, Monday, again at 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And we'll have new topics for you. Please join us. Check out the video in the meantime. If you didn't get to see it all, it will be posted out there on the YouTube
Nice.
channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything in closing, guys?
No, just thank you all
Yeah,
for joining.
thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.